This is really a review for dummies, just people like me that use the camera, like what it's for, don't maybe know all the technical ins and outs of everything. We just want a really good image, and this is the way to get it. So this is a Komodo X, and we're gonna talk about it. RED Komodo X, I've owned this camera basically since it came out. I pre-ordered it once I saw kind of the spec sheet and how it really checked off a lot of the boxes and problems that I had with the original Komodo. Talk about what I love about this camera and a few things that you can consider if you're looking into getting into the RED cinema kind of ecosystem with everything. So first things first, this is not a technical review. There's a lot of technical reviews out there. I'll list a few in the description below. This is really a review for dummies, just people like me that use the camera, like what it's for, don't maybe know all the technical ins and outs of everything. We just want a really good image, and this is the way to get it. So a little bit about my background. I use this camera a lot for commercial style work, stuff that's maybe one person, just me running and gunning, up to maybe 5 crew on set. But this camera has really been kind of the answer for a lot of the productions that we do. This will be a review for people that are smaller crews, smaller 1 to 2 person crews that kind of like to keep a really lean sort of system. I really think this camera is absolutely perfect for you. In making this review, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Komodo, the OG Komodo. An amazing camera. I had it, I ended up selling it and was rocking the Canon C70s for the majority of my productions. However, when this got announced with its upgrades and it's kind of its new feature set, really ticked all the boxes for me and brought me back into it. A few smaller things I really love about this camera. One really being V-mount plate that's kind of just built in to the camera. It's absolutely incredible. No more like extenders and attachments and all that stuff. You can really just slap a V-mount camera on right there and you're really good to go. A few other things I really loved about this camera. One, it's not really with the newer Komodo X. However, it's something that I got when I bought this, is the Revolva lens system with the ND filters. Gosh, there's been nothing better. And I'll stop right there. That was one of my bigger gripes with all these cameras. Coming from the Canon C70s, I've used a handful of Sonys, I've used some of the bigger Canons. Having the built-in ND filters was a game changer, something that I never wanted to live without. And then buying this camera again, I know I didn't want the kind of screw-on ND filters on the lens, nor did I want this big matte box that just honestly for most applications I just didn't need. Having this Revolva system has been game changing. And I have the RF to EF version. I know the RF to PL is super popular. However, for me, I use a lot of EF glass. I still shoot photo with my Canon EF glass. I'm running some EF glass on this camera that's filming me right now. So another fun fact about this Revolva is that it does transmit the RED's autofocus with this. So that is another part that wasn't a selling point for me for any reason, but now having the autofocus, I was pleasantly surprised at actually just how good it was. I was on a one-man band kind of shoot recently, and it was just me and with my Sigma 24-70 that's actually filming me right now. And normally I just manually pull focus, kind of like everyone would. However, I was like, let's just see how good this RED autofocus is with this. The OG Komodo, it was really slow, a little laggy, not as reliable. However, the new Komodo X autofocus is pretty noteworthy. While it isn't perfect, it's in my opinion good enough for kind of more of that run and gun style, quick filming. You just kind of want to come in, get a few shots of either just like action happening or directing a few small, simple things. So the autofocus, and I'll cut to a few clips with showcasing some of the autofocus. It's pretty dang good. Now I know with the new firmware, they just implemented the face tracking, which I have used a little bit. Again, it's not perfect, but the fact that you get face tracking autofocus in this tiny little cinema camera that shoots RAW, pretty dang incredible. So some improvements I've noticed with this camera, and a few other reviewers like my buddy Cam has talked about, is just the image quality and the low light capability of the RED Komodo X. It's been very surprising at how well this camera responds to really low light. Most times I'm either working with a DP, and one of my primary DPs, he's also been on the channel, he shoots this at ISO 640. Keeps it a little bit lower than native ISO, and I've been very pleasantly surprised with color grading all the footage that the noise levels in this are just drastically improved from the OG Komodo. And I know on the spec sheet it's was supposed to be maybe a half stop to a full stop of improvement, but honestly, I'm extremely comfortable with this camera in pretty dark situations, knowing that at least I'll be able to get something that's usable, and also the grain on the low light, it's just kind of pleasing. It isn't that destructive. To be honest, I really like it. Another thing that's very similar to the OG Komodo is really just the form factor of this. I know with the Komodo X, it's a little bit longer than the OG Komodo. However, just keeping this thing really just nimble and a little bit lighter, I feel like the Komodo X really is kind of the sweet spot for handheld footage and getting a little bit of shake, but not any of those micro jitters. And even pairing it with an IS lens, I mean, you're really kind of getting super smooth footage out of a cinema camera that's pretty portable, compact. I don't really find myself using an easy rig with this anymore. I just really like kind of keeping it really close to my body and being able to utilize it that way. Quick pause in the video, and apologies for the noise outside. We're in our new studio, kind of the surroundings. The new studio is a little bit of a construction zone. It is set to be finished here in the next week or two, which then we will get all the construction stuff out of here. We'll have our podcast studio up. We'll have all of this kind of lighting in a more permanent place, but all that to say, it's coming along nicely. I'm pretty happy with the space. Just to have a space to create, it's gonna be killer. All right, back to the video. So one of the biggest things that kind of brought me back to RED, so I sold my OG RED, was running the Canon C70s, and again, for a lot of the work I'm doing, it's corporate, it's commercial, it's interviews, it's B-roll, occasionally some more narrative style filmmaking, but for the majority of it is client projects, client work, stuff like that. A lot of people would say this camera is overkill for that. And while I would agree, there have been countless situations already in owning the camera for less than 6 months that the RED RAW has saved me. Namely, one instance where the client that I was shooting, one of their clients that we were also kind of collaborating with, had a certain color scheme for some of the products they were highlighting. Having the RED RAW took my workflow from maybe spending a couple hours really finessing everything to kind of nailing this in maybe 15-20 minutes, matching the colors no problem. RED RAW is a massive saver, and honestly the RED RAW is probably the only reason why I still own this camera. Most everything else you have to kind of mount to it, and accessories and all these other things. A lot of these cameras that are coming out today, they already have them built in. So there's really no point in owning a RED camera if it didn't have the incredible RAW features that it does have. Another one of the key features that kind of sets RED apart is that when you buy this camera, it's really just the brain. You're buying this highly technical computer that you have to then buy all these other attachments for it. It gets really expensive really fast, and the body alone is, I think, still $10,000, so it's not by no means an inexpensive camera. But then rigging it up, putting lenses, grips, mounts on everything, it does get really expensive. However, getting to rig it out the way you want, while it is annoying when you're swiping that credit card and buying a million different things for it, becomes really, really nice. Becomes nice because you can really rig it up however the heck you want it to, and it's killer. And it's tiny and it's perfect, and I'm a huge fan. One of the other accessories that I really like with this is this side handle that I actually put one of the Mutiny record, start, stop buttons right on this handle to kind of bring it as close to one of the cinema cameras I'm used to using. One of the accessories I love, it's not RED Komodo specific, but just the way the Condor Blue cage is outlaid, has a lot of mounting ports on the side, which I was actually able to attach one of my Condor Blue quick release plates to it. This is an absolutely killer way just to have your phone mounted on the side of this camera to get BTS of what you're filming, and it's super cool. One thing I love about this camera too is the use of the CF Express cards. They are smaller, they are really fast, and they're getting more and more affordable. Upgrading this to the CF Express cards, they're pretty affordable. They're kind of everywhere now, and they're always making them cheaper and faster, and that's another feature I absolutely love about this. And then one thing that I think is talked about pretty often, but the added frame rates built into this. For me, on a lot of the stuff I shoot, I'm usually shooting at a standard frame rate, and when I'm looking for slow-mo, I'm usually going to a 48 frames, something that kind of is just a slightly slowed down, but not full like 60 or 80, but having the 80 frames per second in RAW on this guy has just made life so much easier when I'm looking to just really slow things down a little bit and kind of get really that buttery slow-mo feel on this camera. And having 80 frames and not also having any crop in when you're going to it, it's really just a little swipe and click and your frame's not adjusted or anything like that, has came in really handy when I'm looking to get those quick slow-mo shots. And then lastly, who do I think this camera is for? Should people buy it? To be honest, I think it's really subjective. I think when it came to my buying decision, it was more of a decision of, do I want something that's going to be a little bit more set it and forget it, namely with the RED RAW, something that I can correct in post, something that I can just come in and just film and not have to make sure my exposure is technically perfect, or maybe that the white balance is not set perfectly. With this camera, you truly just kind of flick it on, RED RAW, make sure your exposure is in a good spot, make sure your image looks good, and most things you can kind of correct later on. I know that kind of goes against a lot of what filmmakers are saying, fix it in pre, but when you're someone like me who shoots a lot of run and gun style content, having something that you then can fall back on and fix it in post is just an incredible feature set to have, and something I really want out of every camera I grab these days. This camera is really for anyone who's looking for an upgrade in image quality from a lot of the other cinema cameras in the $5,000 to $10,000 range, and if you're someone like me who shoots a lot of run and gun stuff where you don't have maybe an hour to light something or even 30 minutes to light something where you got to pop a light up real quick, record some content for a client, and you want it to look as high quality as you possibly can in a cinema styled kit that's not necessarily going to break the bank. I know that's subjective depending on the style of stuff you shoot. But for me, I absolutely love it. And honestly, this Komodo X really brought me back into the RED family, and I'm super happy with it. So if you like simplified gear videos like this, I'd be happy to make more. I have a few more that I'm going to be making kind of down the line, showing off some different cameras, some different accessories that I like to use for smaller crews, smaller client projects. Like, subscribe, and I'll be happy to make some more. Thanks, guys. Peace.